Chuck Caisley, Caisley. We're live?
Yes.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Chuck Caisley. I am the Chief Customer Officer for Evergy, and appreciate everybody coming out this morning. What is behind you is the largest utility restoration staging area that has occurred in Kansas City since the ice storm in 2002. Over the course of the day today, literally thousands of men and women, as well as more than 2,000 utility vehicles will come through here. They'll get meals, they'll pick up materials, and then they'll continue the restoration effort that started Friday evening as a result of the storm. So I want to give just a couple of storm updates quickly. As you know, it's a bad weather system. A storm came through Kansas on Friday afternoon, starting in Salina and then making its way through Topeka, Lawrence, and then ultimately getting here in Kansas City and then into our service territory in Missouri. As a result, we had more than 240,000 customers out during that storm, with a peak of 186,000 out at one time. Now, as we sit here today, about 40 hours into the storm restoration effort, 87% have been restored, but there are about 30,000 customers who remain without power. They're spread all over Kansas, and the Kansas City metropolitan area has a significant concentration of those customers. However, we are, like I said, this is the largest restoration effort we've had since about 2002. We will have over 3,000 men and women in the field today working on restoration. They'll be working in 16-hour shifts, and then that's also about 2,000 vehicles. We have called for what we call mutual assistance, which is asking other utilities to help. About 1,000 of that 3,000 folks that are working to restore in this storm are from other utilities and out of state. They've come as far as Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and the east side and southern part of Missouri. So we're really calling folks from all over the Midwest. We've been really thrilled with the response. I want to just mention some of the utility companies, the power companies that are helping. We've got Mid-American, Alliant, AEP, Liberty, Northern Indiana Public Service, OG&E, OPPD, and AEP, all from those states that I just mentioned. This was a really rough storm. We had 80 to 100 mile an hour straight winds, and at least two places where we have unconfirmed tornadic or cyclonic activity, where we had big transmission lines that were taken down. Over 500 poles were snapped or uprooted or have major damage. So there's over 500 poles that are going to have to be replaced over this effort. And like I said, the men and women who are out there are going to be working 16-hour shifts, 24 hours a day until we get this effort done. Again, as we sit here right now, there's about 30,000 customers that remain without power. That's out of a total of 240,000. And again, we're going to be working around the clock to get those folks back on. And with that, I would love to take any questions that you all have.
So you said that it's mainly focused in the KC Metro, but are there specific places you guys are going to begin where it's worse, specific areas?
Yeah, so it's really kind of the South Kansas City area, and then Old Leawood, Prairie Village, Lenexa were some of the hardest areas hit within Kansas City. But we still have some customers out in Topeka and in Lawrence, and then down as far as Fort Scott and Humboldt. There's still significant damage down there. So it's really, this storm, north to south, kind of went across the entire state of Kansas. And so that's one of the things that has made this more difficult, is that the damage is fairly spread out across the state. The great thing about having a utility that operates in both Missouri and in Kansas and is centered in Wichita, Topeka, and Kansas City is we've got a lot of resources that we can throw at a restoration like this. But when all of those cities are hit at the same time with the same storm, it just slows down the restoration effort.
Of course, we're hearing, people could be without power till Wednesday or Thursday. That's just rumors, rumblings. Is there any guess or timeline as to when people can see power?
So I think with 3,000 people in the field today, we are going to get a big chunk of customers on. But there are still 2,700 plus issues on the system, meaning places where we know the system is broken. And so what happens is with 30,000 left out, we're not going to be picking up hundreds at a time, Most of these outages are 1, 2, 5 to 10 people that are out and affected by a particular case or incident. And so it's just going to be slow going. So I think we're going to get a significant number on today, but this could spread into Monday and possibly Tuesday.
And then as far as, I don't know if there's a way to prevent something like this mass outage in the future. I mean, is there any way you guys would learn from this? What do you take from it?
Well, I mean, we're always learning, right? There's always things that we can do. But this is not a situation where tree trimming wasn't done. This wasn't a situation where the system wasn't ready to handle it. This was a situation where we had a major storm that spread across 4 or 5 different metropolitan areas. And if you just take a look on your websites and our social media sites, you can see the pictures of uprooted trees, snapped poles. I mean, the damage that was done by this isn't for branches coming into contact with lines. It's where trees are uprooted, thrown into poles, and poles are snapped. So it's major damage. We always look to see how we can get better. And I'm sure after this outage restoration, there'll be things that we will look to improve on. But this was a massive storm impacting an area that had about 4 million people in it. And so, from our perspective, 240,000 people out, 87% restored at this point. We think we're making solid progress.
There's definitely some progress made, but with 30,000 people out of power maybe till into next week in these temperatures, like what are the resources that they have while they're waiting for Evergy to come out and fix their line?
That's a great question. So there's lots of things that folks can do to help in this situation. First of all, with Amazon these days, not many people have been to the mall for a while. This might be a great time to do a little window shopping anyway. But to keep your houses cooler, there's some things that you can do. First of all, you want to make sure your windows are open overnight, and you want to make sure that the windows are open until early morning, right about right now. That'll help the house release some heat over the evening and be cooler throughout the day. Once the sun starts coming up, and particularly on the side of the house that gets hit directly by the sun, you want to close windows, you want to close drapes to kind of block out that heat as it comes in. Generally speaking, lower is better. So if you have basements, that's a great place to be, or get into internal rooms that will heat up the last. You can also take towels or sheets, and on the side of the house where you don't have the sun hitting it and you have your windows open, you can dampen them and then hang them up, and that kind of is like a little bit of a swamp cooler is what they call it. It helps when the breeze comes in, get moist, cool air into the house. But at the end of the day, everybody wants their air conditioning, and that's why we're working 16-hour shifts, 3,000 people to get the lights back on.
Are you targeting some areas first, like maybe lower socioeconomic status where they might not be able to buy those things off Amazon, like you said, or is it just kind of all at once everywhere?
Well, I didn't mean to imply anybody's buying anything off Amazon. If you don't have power, that's hard to do. So no, I was just saying everybody does their shopping on Amazon these days. The mall might be a great, cool place to go take a little bit of a break. But no, look, we don't target by socioeconomic area. We target by, first we restore critical infrastructure. So that's hospitals, medical, wastewater treatment, things like that. Then we move on to the heaviest parts of the system, so the backbones and laterals that carry the most customers. You can't get into the neighborhoods if transmission lines and the backbone of the system isn't repaired. And then we literally just work outages by size. Right now, we're down to outages of 5 to 10, 15 people affected by an outage.
Chuck, can you speak to what happens at the end of a 16-hour shift? There are crews that leave, but then we also know that there's folks that are coming, but folks don't understand that people are leaving and the job's not done.
Yeah, so we've got a mandate. Crews can only work 16 hours, and after that 16 hours is up, it doesn't make any difference what they're doing. They have to step down for safety reasons and stop working. And so what happens is we stage people throughout the day so that when one crew times out, is what they call it, another crew can come on and start doing their work. So you may see crews that leave your neighborhood that have been working on something and your power's not on, and that could concern you. Don't worry, that's just a crew that's timing out and going somewhere else. It also could be a crew going somewhere else because they've tried to energize a line and it didn't work, and so they've got to go somewhere else to fix the system. And that's the other thing I would tell folks as the day starts to get a little hotter and people start to get frustrated. Two things really. One, just because you don't see us working in your neighborhood doesn't mean we're not working on the issue. I was in a neighborhood last night, right around midnight or so, and they were working about 1.5 miles away to get those customers restored, because that's where the problem was on the system impacting them. The other thing that we'd ask folks is to not approach line crews while they're working. There's really 2 reasons for that. One, and most importantly, it's a safety risk. They are working around very dangerous things. They're trained, they have safety equipment. You don't, so please stay away from them. But the second thing is it really slows down restoration when they stop to try and give people information. Most of the time they don't even have the information that you want.
So just to confirm, you guys are pretty certain that everything will be back up and running by Monday even?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, we are still working to kind of refine our final estimated time for everything being restored. This will definitely go into Monday. There will be some folks that do not have power on Monday, but I think, we're at 30,000 customers out now. I think it's, we get a significant part of that restored today with the resources we have in the field.
And if people do have questions, like, I don't see the people working in my neighborhood, when will I get, the crews out to my area, where should they go? Who should they call?
So the first thing I would recommend to people is that they go to evergy.com and look at our outage map, and they can report an outage there as well. But if folks want to talk to a customer service representative, we are staffing those facilities 24 hours a day at this point, and they can call 1-800-LIGHT-KC if they are in the metropolitan area. Again, that's 1-800-LIGHT-KC. And if you're out in Kansas, in central Kansas, in south central Kansas, then it would be 1-800-LIGHT-KS or Light Kansas. So that's where you call to get more information.
Can you give customers an idea of what kind of work they're going to be doing out there? I know you said poles and lines are down. Is there any other little things that can create a mental picture for people in their head of what you guys are out there doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first and most important thing is we make sure that lines aren't energized. That work is largely done now. And then what they have to do is they have to go in with vegetation crews and tree crews and just clean up the mess. There are trees, large trees that get into these lines, that get into poles, snap poles. So they clean that up first. Then they ground out the system to make sure that it's completely safe to work on. And then they start replacing the infrastructure. Like I said, there's more than 500 poles that have been snapped in this. So you've got to take out the old pole, then you reset the new pole. Just the act of doing that takes 2 or 3 trucks, probably as many as 6 to 8 different people, and can take anywhere between 2 hours or 4 hours, depending on where it is. Understand, some of these poles are located across the back property lines of people's houses. Don't really like people going in there with huge trucks and tearing things up, so that takes a little longer. In many cases, we've got them out in the middle of fields with all this rain. It's just very difficult to get to. So get the poles back up, then we put the cross arms back up on the power poles, and then we restring the conductor or the wires, as people like to think of them, reset transformers. And at this area, you'll see all of that. In front of me, behind you guys, is a staging area where you'll see poles, cross arms, transformers, conductor. You'll see all that stuff. So what happens is the crews come here, they get a meal, then they load up in their trucks and they go out and they pick up whatever they need. Every crew that is here this morning is getting assigned a particular outage or already has been assigned. So they pick up materials, they drive there, and they start working. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time this morning, and I'm sure we'll be back with more updates as this continues.